Hi, I ever think of communicating through writing? I ever think of transforming your thought, what you think inwardly, put it outward, not verbally but through writing? This is something that everybody believes that they can do. This is something that everybody wish to do. This is writing. It's easy, but at times it's not easy. It is an art, it's a science. It's something that you have to learn, something that you have to put in practice. Day in, day out, when you do writing, you write and you're making communication. You communicate, you make an effective meaning out of it. It's something that does not just come overnight. It's something that you have to plan, practice, and see your ways correcting mistakes here and there, work about it, and day in, day out, you get to communicate. It's a beautiful thing, a beautiful art to do. Many people communicate, many people write, many people talk to the others through writing. We write letters, both formal and informal. We communicate through social media. We discuss issues. But have you ever asked yourself whether your writing is making sense to other people? Have you ever realized that in most cases we write, but we do what we call babbling? In babbling, when you write and you write bubbles, it's like throwing a stone into water, which does not make sensible sound. And there is a way you can make a stone communicate, and that is through practicing effective writing. How do we go to get into effective writing? Yes, join me. I'm your host, Phil. In the School of Academy, I'm going to take you through how to write effectively. And in this case, writing effectively, we are going to talk about academic writing, communicating academically and making sense to the reader, making sense to the scholars outside there, making sense to your lecturer, to your tutor, and making sense to your fellow learners. Let's let's get it rolling. And in our rolling, we are looking at effective writing. What is effective writing? Effective writing refers to integration of your thoughts into writing communication. It's about critical thinking, analytical thinking, persuasive thinking, and putting them into a non discordant communication. And for us to write well, for us to write effectively, we always say that we must agree with the academic tone. And agreeing with academic tone would mean that what we are writing, our communication, must obey the rule of grammar. And the grammar rule is the object subject agreement. And in this case, when you comply to that, there is another thing that we talk about in effective writing or writing effectively. It's called the active voice. Academic writing is all about active voice, not passive voice. There are very few occasions that you'll write in your passive voice, but in most cases, you write in active voice. So let's start. Let's look at very few things that can make our writing effectively and can communicate best in terms of academic voice. And while doing so, we have to remember that we are going to have a very short session. And in this session, we are not going to cover everything. But as you do practice, you'll be able to get familiar with everything and your writing will flow coherent and you'll obtain an effective paper or you'll obtain ability to write flawlessly and you'll be able to write a very good paper that scores highly. And that is my mission. And that is the mission of the School of the Academy of Life and the mission of every other person or my listener or viewers. The first thing to avoid, I number it as 2.1. You're supposed to avoid informal or conversational expressions, such as kind of and sort of. Those are verbal and casual communication words that we always use every now and then. But in academic writing, you're gonna be straight. And when you go straight, you must avoid jargons. So when you're communicating, be precise. An example is given. And its original part is the exam was kind of difficult. you are not supposed to say that. Kind of, it's not. So you are supposed, the exam was rather difficult. 2, avoid contractions and abbreviations. For example, applicants who don't have strong computer skills won't be as competitive as those who do. The right way to write it, applicants who do not have strong computer skills will not be as competitive as those who do. Point 3, avoid referring to yourself or addressing the reader directly as you. For example, if you receive less than 6.5 on the ELTS, you may not be recruited. The right way to say it, applicants who receive less than 6.5 on the ETLs may not be recruited. So you can see in the first case, we use if you. So the word, the term, or the phrase you is not acceptable, and we start with the applicant, who is now the subject. And we say that we adhere to the rule of subject-object rule or object-subject rule. So applicants who receive less than 6.5 on the LSAT may not be recruited. The fourth example, avoid starting your sentences with I think. For example, I think this is an effective plan. How can we say it rightly? Say, this could be an effective plan. But the starting statement in academic by the term this, it doesn't make sense. It's not auguring well in academic voice. So you can say the author believes that this could not be an effective plan. But again, because you are referring to previous sentence, if you are doing a continued writing, at times you can be allowed to do that. But you may realize that if you start a sentence with this in between or anytime you are writing academic paper, then it's going to be called as a fragmented sentence. Number 5, avoid the use of etc and so forth. These terms are vague. That is why we are avoiding them. So you can say in an example, in my free time, I enjoy sports, etc. The right way, in my free time, I enjoy sports and other activities such as reading. Then use passive voice when appropriate. Passive voice only when appropriate, probably when you're making a comment that directly refers to you or writing an academic paper or a reflection academic paper. A reflective academic paper, you may use the passive voice. So, for example, you put the chemicals in the test tube. This is an experiment. So if you say you put the chemicals in the test tube, not good enough, but then you can say the chemicals are put in the test tube. So you'll find that the original sentence is active, but the revision is passive. Number 7, use single word verbs as much as possible rather than phrasal verbs, as single word verbs are generally more formal and concise. For example, the president brought up some questions. The right way, the president raised some questions. Because if you look at brought up, it's not a single verb. But raised is a single verb. Use natural language. For example, a student planning to graduate this spring should see his advisor at once. His, we talked about the APA 7th edition, whereby instead of using is or her, what we call that an identical or unknown gender, you are supposed to use they. So you can say, you can make a sentence in plural and say, students planning to graduate this spring should see their advisors at once. Or you can say, a student planning to graduate this spring should see their advisor at once. There as a case of they. We look at now paper format. Paper format also makes or contribute to effective academic writing. Our paper format, as we highlighted, we discussed in APA and MLA, we can say that always the margin should be 1 inch or 2.54 centimeter margins all round. The font is supposed to be Times New Roman 12 unless stated. When the rubric states otherwise, then you'll comply with the tutor's instruction. It's supposed to be double spaced unless stated. Then paragraphs should be indented by 0.5 inches spaces. The pagination must be numbered consecutively, and the title of the essay should have no quotation marks, italics, or underlining. The citation and referencing. Here we talk about all ideas taken from other sources, whether by direct quotation, summarizing, or paraphrasing. It must be acknowledged via in-text citation and a works cited page for the case of MLA and reference page for the case of APA. This means referring to them twice. Within the text is the in-text citation, and at the end of your paper, which is bibliography, reference, or works cited. Then format in-text citation. We looked at in-text citation under MLA and APA, and we are not going to talk about that much. So we are going to pass that because we can infer or we can refer that from our APA formatting and MLA formatting. But we can now go down to we can go down to examples of referencing. And example of referencing, here we are talking about the APA formatting. So examples of referencing, we have the type of material, the in-text reference, the reference list, and notes. The type of material, the first one we have books. The format for books is author, family name. Family name will refer to surname or last name. The title and edition of the book, place of publication, and then the publisher. So if you find a book that is third edition, then if that book was written or published by Smith, written by Smith as the author, you'll say Smith 2021, Smith in bracket 2021, that is in referencing. And then the title of the book, maybe you can say that writing effectively, then in bracket the third edition, and then the title, and then the place of publications. You can say maybe it was done in New York or London, and then the publisher, maybe you can say it's Longhorn Publishers. Then when the author, we have one author. It starts with Stokes believes, Stokes argued, Stokes noted, found out, all those examples. So in terms of referencing, you can see Stokes D, full stop in bracket 2002, and then full stop marketing, full stop third edition, and then the publication was London and the publisher was Thomson. So that is how we are supposed to do it. If it is the case of two authors, it's Howard K and Louis, and full stop. Then in bracket we have the year of publication, and then we have the title. Then we have the city or the place of publication, which is New York, and then the publisher, which is Willie. So that is what we are supposed to do in that line. And if we are doing these things keep changing from the type of referencing and formatting. So you must comply to our referencing. If it is APA, you'll comply to APA. If it is MLA, you'll have to comply to MLA. So another thing that we can also look at, you'll have to look at all these things through the links that we've provided, the Purdue link and then the Scribe link. They have the resources and the necessity that can help you write everything. But there's something I wanted to talk about more than just referencing when we talk about effective writing. Effective writing, we try to reduce the chances of having incoherent and incomplete information when you're communicating. You are supposed to structure your paper or your sentence in three ways. First, we get disjointed points because of we think and try to relay what we think in our mind to our mouth and then put it into writing. That is not the way we are supposed to write. A winning in effective writing always starts with research. So you are supposed to do your research effectively and thoroughly Note down the main point that you want to talk about. Note down the point that you've paraphrased from the source, and note down the example that you are going to use. So you are supposed to state the point, illustrate that point, and then tie it with an example. And you make it flow to that extent that it doesn't lead to some of disjointed parts. So try to read something and understand it. Then when you start writing, you write in your own words, not that you are copying. If you copy from another source, you'll always make incoherent statements. So read something when you're doing research, understand it better. After understanding it, note the points that you want to talk about, and most probably or most likely you got those points from the third party of the sources. After noting them down, give them or scribble a brief explanation or illustration to make you remember what they are, but do it in your own words, not as it is in the third party's resource. So when you'll be starting writing, you can state that point at the beginning of the paragraph, illustrate that point, or define or expand on that point. After defining it, illustrate. After illustrating, then provide the example. After providing the example, then you need to summarize that point. So by the time you're summarizing that point, you'll find that you've written something between 140 to about 150 or 160 words, and that will lead to a summary of that paragraph. So you'll go to the next thing. So you need to keep on practicing and see yourself growing in writing. You'll not just gain the speed at once or writing effectively at once. You have to do practice. Otherwise, try to do practice using the skills that we've given and the tips that we've provided. As we keep on talking, we are going to give more and more information. Otherwise, thank you so much. I enjoy watching our records today. Subscribe, like, comment, and share with your networks. See you in the next class. Thank you.